It was already shaping up to be a big weekend for the portal for NC State basketball, but with a couple additional names into the fray, turn up the heat.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Happy Friday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Yesterday, we talked about the possibility of adding Indiana State guard Ryan Conwell to the pack. He is scheduled for a visit this weekend at NC State, but wouldn't you know it, a couple more names have come knocking. And just to reiterate, NC State has caught the attention of several, and I mean several players in the portal.
When you are the prettiest girl at the dance, you're the prettiest girl at the dance. There's nothing you can do about it. Right now, NC State is hot as fish grease, and everybody and their mama wants to get a piece of that heat. They want to say, hey, we saw what you did with DJ Horn in 1 year. What can you do with me in 2 to 3? We saw what you did with Casey Marcel in a few years. What can you do with us? We saw how DJ Burns turned out. We want to get a little bit of that loving. We want to see what it's like to experience that. Experience the ability to not be judged by whether or not I was an original recruit or not, but instead by can I play? Because, we've often talked about player development here, leaving something to be desired in many facets. And that is still something that I will not back down from and say we do a great job now because of the run. But what I will say is what we do a great job of is recognizing and identifying talent to go get through the portal who will then get us to where we need to be. Thinking of a Jarkel Joyner, thinking of a DJ Burns, thinking of a Marcel, thinking of an O'Connell, Diarra, etc., Jaden Taylor. There's so many guys, it's hard to even keep track of them all. But we do a great job in the portal.
This coming weekend, there's some talent that's visiting that has noticed NC State, and NC State has in turn noticed this talent. We talked about Ryan Conwell, the guard from Indiana State. He is probably at the top of my list, but we'll talk about that more in just a second. A couple more names to know here. One of these actually came a week ago, and I had a tweet mentioning, okay, maybe we could see this turn out to be in NC State's favor. The name is Freddy Dion. He was a guard at Tennessee. He was a freshman this year. He's a 6'5" guard. His hometown is Fayetteville, North Carolina. Kenton, I'll give you one guess where he went to high school.
I'm going to go word of God for 1,000, Alex.
Bingo. Freddy Dion attended Word of God Christian Academy right here in Raleigh. When he first hit the portal, there was a lot of indication that perhaps Louisville would be in the immediate lead for his services. Well, Freddy Dion is going to visit NC State this weekend before visiting Louisville next week. He was the number one shooting guard in the state of North Carolina coming out of high school in 2022. Now, he didn't get to play much at Tennessee this year, but Tennessee fans were very excited about his prospect. He's very smooth. He plays at an impressive pace, which is something that Kevin Keatts likes to do, might I add. This is something to keep your eye on. I think at the college level, he is still unproven, didn't get a whole lot of run at Tennessee, but the raw talent and the projection for Freddy Dion is certainly there. That is something to really consider as he is visiting us this weekend.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. You know what? You know how I said Coach Keatts has answered a lot of the questions about him during that 3-4 week run. You know what the last question is? And this was going to take a little bit more time to answer. But if he were to land a Dilon and he were to get MJ Rice on the right track and get Dilon on the right track, all of a sudden you answer the player development question. Because both of those two, while they have star-studded talent, they have not put it together into star-studded production at the college level. Now, we know some of the struggles that MJ Rice went through last year. And if, he's right and rolling and doing the things that he needs to do to produce at a high level this year, I'm just saying those thoughts about how are we developing and who are we developing start to kind of go out the window.
Another name that came across our desk is Chant Jenkins. He's a guard from Old Dominion. He's 6'4". He averaged 15.9 points this year with the Monarchs, 3.8 rebounds, and 2.7 assists. He'll be visiting Raleigh this weekend. He has 1 year remaining of eligibility. And the last name, we also talked about him yesterday, in Shaq Moore. Now, there's not a visit scheduled, but what we're going to do here, we're going to operate under the assumption that NC State is more than likely looking to take 2 guards, probably at least 2 guards. So we're not at Panera Bread here, but we're going to do a pick 2. Out of these 4 guards, Kenton, if you could pick just 2, who are you taking?
Give me Conwell and Dilon, and I don't think it's a very hard decision for me. The only thing is Jenkins and his playmaking makes me a little intrigued because Dilon is a 2 guard. Conwell is more of a combo guard than a true point guard, a lot like we had with DJ Horn last year. I'm very intrigued by the playmaking, not intrigued enough to go away from either of the 2 that I selected because I think Dilon has a ceiling that is he has a banner hanging ceiling, and I'll say that, and I think that's how good he could be. And then I look at Conwell and I say, hey, that's a proven talent. That's a proven talent that can put the ball in the cup. He can fill it up. That's what he does at a high clip. That is what this team is going to need at a high clip because very similarly to how we talked about losing Jarkel and Baby T 2 years ago, or last year rather, and we said there are a lot of shots available. What do you think just came available with Marcel, Burns, Horn all leaving? What do you think? How many shots do you think just opened up in that lineup? So, somebody who can knock down those shots is important. Somebody who can set the table for guys is obviously important. We've got MOC for that. I'd like to see another playmaking point guard get in the mix, but I think that those 2 would do the trick for me if I had to pick just 2.
I'm taking Conwell, and I'm taking Dilon, and I'm telling everybody else, get out the way. Talked about Conwell being able to create and being able to score at all 3 levels. I truly do think that Conwell is probably he's your home run pickup so far out of this portal class. Again, there's going to be more names to jump in the portal. Perhaps there's better fits out there. But as of right now, here on Friday, with Conwell visiting us this weekend, you got to throw the kitchen sink at this guy. You have got to get him to Raleigh because of all the capabilities that he possesses for potentially your team next year. I think the untapped potential in Freddy Dion is more than enough to reach out and take a flyer on. I think the sky's the limit with a guy like that. He's a superior athlete, smooth with the ball, super athletic. We've talked about securing the border of North Carolina, bringing home this talent and really building up the rapport in this state with these high school players saying NC State can be the place for you and you don't have to leave home to do it. Perfect example right here with Freddy Dion. So if I had to pick just 2, I'm taking those 2. In the comments, out of these 4 guards, or maybe you've been hearing something about other guards, if you could only pick 2, tell us who your 2 would be. We want to know what you think, who you're prioritizing in this portal. We're interested to see what y'all think because as this continues to play out, you might see names continue to pop up a bit more often than others. And who knows? Before we know it, our roster will begin to formulate. So massive opportunity this weekend for NC State basketball. You got to be able to capitalize on a weekend like this one.
I look at Dilon a lot like how the Warriors looked at Kevin Durant, not from the factor of I expect him to win MVP and most outstanding player in a couple tournaments coming up here. No, but sometimes you need a guy off a team that you're going to have to play a lot just as much as you need him on your team. I don't want to see this young man in another uniform twice a year. I don't call me crazy, call me scared, call me what you want, but don't call me for fronts. I don't want to see that young man twice a year. I just don't.
Coming up next for diving into Fan Friday, we have so many Fan Friday submissions that will cover the remainder of the show. But stick with us. We got a lot of good comments. Our first sponsor of the day is eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy, but it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. That's because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Middle portion of our Friday show, now diving right into Fan Friday. Here we go. First one comes from Jason, NCSU 2007. He says, hopefully the recent success of the men's basketball team makes it easier to fill in any coaching staff gaps, as well as raise the bar on the quality of staff we hire. This is the team's first immediate opportunity to show everyone that 2024 was not a fluke and that we are here to be a major player for years to come. Jason hits the nail on the head here. You have got to strike while the iron is hot. And that's not just limited to players in the portal. That is also coaching staff related. And I know the comment after this one is directly related, but it'll be very interesting to see who NC State prioritizes in adding to this staff, because you're going to need a seasoned vet on the trails of recruiting, and you're going to need a skilled tactician to replace or take a step above what Joel Justice provided to this team, because you got to take this run and then take it up a notch. You got to find ways to continue this progress, and another home run hire to the staff is the way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And you could definitely do it. Like you said, after a year of success, coaches are now looking at NC State as a place where you can come and have a great year, great 2 years, great 3 years, and go get that promotion into the next step, next level at whatever big name college you'd like.
As I mentioned, that leads us directly into the second comment. This one comes from Josh Wicker. Bring Julius Hodge back to Raleigh. Kenton, what do you think about the possibility of adding Julius Hodge to this staff?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. If he wants to come back, I mean, he's already very vocal about all things NC State, all things Wolfpack and all that, and he's a very respected coach. So I think bringing him back here would be a great idea. I don't see a problem with it, unless there is something behind the scenes that we don't know about that's just like, hey, there's no way under God's green earth you can bring him back. I don't see why you wouldn't.
It's funny because I've seen this comment like years in the past, kind of joking almost in passing, saying like, oh, it'd be cool to see Julius Hodge back here on the coaching staff. But I don't know what it is about this time around. I think it's because we just had a historical run, and you saw so many former players out there in Phoenix watching the team. I think it'd be a perfect time to capitalize on bringing in some Wolf blood. He's one of the most storied players of this program of the last 20 years. And so he's had a multitude of experiences of his own. He's been on several different coaching staffs in the last decade plus. I would like to see what Julius Hodge could bring to the table for NC State. You know he'd be a fan favorite. You know he'd bring the energy into this program because he has that at all times.
Absolutely.
And he also provides all of his own experience, not just what he's already done on the recruiting trail, but this is a guy that made it to the NBA. He's made it to the professional level of basketball. And for him to give all of that knowledge to our current players, I don't see any downside to this. I think this would be an excellent hire. And this would be one I'd be very interested to see how much traction it might actually get. It's a
win-win-win. I don't see a problem here.
Next one comes from Micah Venable. He says, if Rice, Parker Jr., O'Connell, Middlebrooks, and Diarra stay, I'm liking that as a foundation for the team to build on. I know we didn't get to see much of Rice this year. This is MJ Rice. But we all love what we did see of him, and he can and will be a key piece if he's healthy. I know he wasn't even with the team at the Final Four, and that hurt to see. I pray he gets better and ready to go next year. First part of this and returning the core, I would also add Jaden Taylor to the mix. I think he could also be a key piece to what we're trying to do next year. But MJ Rice, I think he does feel like one of the bigger question marks of this roster at the current moment. I'm kind of under the impression that all of the other players listed here in DPJ, O'Connell, Middlebrooks, Diarra, and Taylor, I'm under the impression, at least right now, that all of them are intending to return. And that'd be a very big deal. So MJ Rice, I was extremely high on him last year. I couldn't believe that State even landed him with the amount of talent that he has. I would love absolutely nothing more for him to stay here, get right with himself, and then absolutely go off in the red and white. He's another player that would really speak to the big deal of keeping players home and cultivating them here in Raleigh. So despite not seeing him much this year, and we certainly wish him the best regardless, he checks a lot of boxes with the versatility that he still does have and still can display. So we're going to have to wait and see how this all plays out, but I sincerely hope that MJ Rice does remain a Wolfpacker next year.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. MJ is a special, special talent. He is the type of guy that you can kind of slot him in at the 2 through 4, depending on what the other team is trotting out, and he can have an impact at those 3 positions at a high level. You know, at the end of the day, I really do want everybody to know that these athletes are people outside the game, and MJ Rice was going through some very human things outside the game that he needed to take time away for and to kind of get himself back right. And again, I hope that MJ Rice, the human, is okay first, and that, you know, he's rolling right and has everything going good in terms of facilities as a human, and then the basketball part comes next. And I hope that that's phenomenal as well. I hope he's an All-American, All-ACC, all-world guy who helps NC State achieve what they need to. But I agree. MJ Rice, DPJ, MOC, Ben Middlebrooks, and Modiar, that's an excellent foundation, especially in today's college basketball where you're used to turning over a ton of the roster. You're used to turning over a ton of your starters and guys who play big minutes every year. To return this many, you're doing something right.
Last one here before we take a quick break. This one comes from Toast 803. They say, I find it hard to believe that this was the first time in AP history that all 3 of the Triangle schools were in the final top 10. That is actually true. This is the first time that Duke, the Dirty Foot Club, and your very own NC State finished in the final top 10 poll of the year. Just reaffirms what all the national basketball guys were talking about over the course of NC State's run, in that the product of college basketball and ACC basketball is just so much better when all 3 schools are firing on all cylinders. And it would be so incredibly fun for NC State to stay consistent in this mix and be able to beat Duke consistently, beat the Dirty Foot Club consistently, and continue to compete for ACC championships consistently. We desperately want this not to be a one-off. We want to be in the mix every single year. And so perhaps this run is the tip of the iceberg, and NC State gets this thing going again. This could potentially be a full-scale revival, and all of a sudden NC State's turned a corner in recruiting, in on-court success, in NIL support, everything. And then we're back in the mix, and we are finishing ranked that should be one of many goals, to finish ranked every single year. But to finish in the top 10, another bonus for Kevin Keats, that sweetens the deal.
I honestly don't give a damn what the other 2 teams in the Triangle are doing, honestly. I actively, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, it's not a zero-sum game. That's a lie. This is very much so like, hey, if they are worse, we are better. That's right. Just how it works out. So maybe let's try only the Wolfpack are ranked going forward, you know. But regardless of what the other 2 teams do, I think it's very important for, you know, the Wolfpack to be acknowledged in this way, and for the Wolfpack to earn it. Because this wasn't a situation where we were given a top 10 ranking because it was nice and fun and cute. We were one of the last 4 teams left playing basketball. Very well deserved, very well earned. Keep our foots on necks, re-establish what it is. There is no more Coach K. There is no more Roy Williams. So it's time.
Continuing our Fan Friday after a quick word from our sponsors. Second sponsor of the day is Gametime. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. This makes getting tickets even faster and easier for all of you baseball fans out there. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes all of the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, making Game Time truly the place for all of your last-minute ticket needs. Using their last-minute deals, you can save up to 60% off buying tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and anything else you could possibly imagine. You can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect upon arrival. And Game Time's lowest price guarantee means that Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find the same seat in a different section and row for less. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, and again, create an account and use redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Last couple minutes of our Friday show, now diving right back into Fan Friday. Next one comes from All Lies Within. They say, another thing to point out with Conwell is that before Indiana State, he was previously at South Florida while Coach Dixon was on staff there. Current NC State assistant coach, Coach Dixon. So that is a nice connection as well. They say in the job world that it's all about who you know, and networking is paramount. It's not so different in college basketball recruiting or any sport recruiting. It is all about who you know. And for NC State to have one of Ryan Conwell's previous coaches currently on staff, that is a massive leg up. That's about the biggest leg up you could possibly imagine. Not to mention going to the Final Four and winning an ACC championship. You really hope that the familiarity there between Coach Dixon and Conwell can land a big fish here in Raleigh.
The thing is, the name of the game in recruiting is relationships. Say what you want about Coach Kyle. He is the master of relationships. When you see him interact with a recruit's family, he looks like he's part of the family. And I don't think y'all understand exactly what I'm saying in saying that. John Calipari is an old Italian dude. His recruits are mostly young black men. And when he is with their families, he is ingratiated in. So why is that important here, right? It's important here because Dixon already has that relationship to where he already feels like a part of Conwell's family. He feels like that to Conwell, which, like you said, should give the ultimate leg up here.
Next one comes from NCSU Pack fan. He says, there's been some rumors stirred up about MOC possibly playing lax for his last year. Any smoke to that, or people just talking to talk? And then he adds, edit, Ryan Conwell is number one on my wish list. Found out about the guy about a month ago, and he is every bit as good as advertised. If we got him and then didn't get anything else in the portal, I'd still be ecstatic. So first of all, about Michael O'Connell. Michael O'Connell just played probably the best season of basketball that he's played in his life, in the season on the team of his life. And people think he might give up that and NIL money to go play lacrosse. I don't see that happening at all. I think that's just a funny rumor that started. This sort of thing always kind of happens when you hear about wide receivers in the NFL that used to play lacrosse. They're like, oh, this guy used to play lacrosse. Maybe after NFL, he can go back to playing that. This is not happening for Michael O'Connell. I would be floored, absolutely floored, if he chooses to play lacrosse in his final year of eligibility. I think I'd have to imagine for Mike, the getting is about as good as you can get here at NC State, and I see no reason to give that up now.
NCSU Pack fan, you have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, run amok, and led astray. Why? Let's be very clear about this, okay? Because I've seen stranger things happen, right? Like Bo Hines, for example, was my teammate before he transferred into an Ivy League school. I get it. We've seen spectacularly head-scratching things happen before. This is not one of those things. There is nothing of substance around this. And I mean this very genuinely. In today's world, I don't really like Grayson gave the most realistic scenario of lacrosse for a lot of these guys. It's like, hey, when they're done with whatever their sport that's actually paying them is, they go back to lacrosse after that. Because with all due respect, Lacrosse is a country club sport, and there is not a demand to see country club sports played at a high level, but MOC is not leaving basketball for lacrosse. That's not happening.
The second part about Conwell, yeah, I am in full agreement. If I had a wish list right now as it stands, Conwell is at the top of it. He's a dynamic player, and he'd be a perfect fit here in Raleigh.
I like Conwell a lot. I don't like him enough to say if it was either let Keats and them cook in the portal and get everything they want with the possibility of Conwell or guarantee Conwell and nothing else, I'm going with Conwell. I like him. I really like him. I'm not in love with him like that. Couple 30 and 10s next year, hey, in the words of Smokey, when he come around, I'll shut up. But until then, I'm going to be talking again. I like him. I really like him. I don't love him enough to say him over everybody.
Next one comes from Bradley M. They say, I know the conversation was when we weren't sure of Keats' future. Should we hold the coach hostage in order to guarantee recruits coming in? But now, since Keats' seat is cold as ice, how good can Paul McNeil and Trey Parker be right out of the gate? So this does feel a little bit like an added bonus. And there was some conversations about near the end of the regular season about if Keats goes, does that mean our two recruits would also go? As that typically works out, yeah, that's always a possibility. You could lose the high-level recruits that Keats was going to bring in here. Now, because Keats is cemented and possibly looking for a statue to be built, these recruits, you feel really good about them now coming to Raleigh. And so Paul McNeil and Trey Parker, they are both superior athletes. Paul McNeil, every time you see a tweet with his name attached to it, it's because he scored like 50-plus points in a high school game. He went crazy this year in high school basketball. Trey Parker was supposed to join us last year before opting to go back to the Overtime Elite League. Trey Parker, I'm sure by now many of you have seen the dunk highlights from him. A freak athlete. He can jump to the rafters and probably then some before he throws down a dunk. He is an insane athlete. I would say arguably one of the most athletic prospects that State has ever been attached to. Like that crazy of an athlete. Yeah. If I had to gauge it as of now, I think I would expect more of Paul McNeil out of the gate. I think his game is a bit more polished, probably on both sides of the ball. I think he's more refined as a scorer. But Trey Parker, when you have the amount of athleticism that Trey Parker has, you feel like he can do anything. I just think that he'll take a bit more time to progress than perhaps Paul McNeil will.
They are both going to be as good out of the gate as the playmakers that surround them are.
That's a great point.
Trey Parker is a phenomenal slasher. A phenomenal slasher. I don't think he has the handle at the college level to consistently get to the basket by himself. However, when you are in transition opportunities, he's fast enough to where he's always going to be involved in that. He can jump high enough to where if you've got him in transition somewhere, get him the ball and get out the way. Get out the way, and let's see what happens. McNeil, a lot of the same thing. Although McNeil is known for creating his own shot and all that, I think where he'll be making his bread and butter in college, originally at least, is as a catch-and-shoot sharpshooter, as a killer off the catch-and-shoot, as a guy who, when you ignore him, when you double DR, when you double middle bricks, etc., and they kick it out to him, go ahead and put that three in the bank. That's where I think he makes his living early. So I think both of these two, they're going to be as good as the playmaking is around them. Not an ounce better, not an ounce worse.
Last one here, and I had to throw in a sentimental one, but I promise I won't cry. It comes from JD2 Cylinder Nut. They say, what I'll remember most about the Wolfpack 2024 run is watching my daughter, who's a freshman at NC State, lock in to what being a Wolfpack fan is all about. The generation that got to experience 1983's run, or maybe even around for 1974, getting able to watch guys like us, like Kenton and I, who are only 28, witness the most improbable thing that we have ever seen this year. For the parents that grew up State fans, or maybe they attended NC State, to watch their own children get to witness something that they have witnessed before in their lifetime. It's so unbelievably special. But further than that, it's so special to really only NC State. We are sort of known as the school of the Cinderella. And so what many fan bases don't understand is how much all of this truly means to us and how much it will mean to us in the future. You see other schools like snicker at it and say, well, you didn't even win the whole thing. That doesn't matter. What matters is the hope in this fan base was reignited. The belief in this NC State basketball program was reignited. And you cannot put a limit on what that means to all of us. Being able to feel the joy and the expectation and the anxiety of a deep March Madness run, it was even better than I always pictured it might be. It was truly better. And to watch this fan base rally around this team, rally around this school, rally around this city, it was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever witnessed. And I mean, I can't get enough of it. I never will get enough of it. This was truly the run of a lifetime.
I know if other teams are snickering at it, I know of one team in particular that needs to wash their feet soon that definitely shouldn't be snickering about not finishing the job, because we walked away with an ACC championship, something that school can't say they've had in quite some time. And they can't claim a natty either in quite some time. Interesting. That's neither here nor there. This is absolutely right, though. This is absolutely right. You know, this is what it's all about. I tell people all the time that fandom should be fun. You know, like, again, long-suffering Lions fan here. Do y'all know how I was acting last year? Same deal here. Although NC State has historically been better than my Lions. Y'all like to tell me that whenever I compare NC State to the Lions. I know that the ineptitude of the Lions, we don't need to go there and talk about that. But in all seriousness, there is a beauty. There is something special going from being the lovable losers to all of a sudden you're in the Final Four. There is beauty in going into being a team that you can never be counted out at the start of the year, because regardless of who's on your team, it's a chance that you're going to go deep. I'm talking about Westmore and the women here. It's a beauty in being that team. And, of course, there's even more beauty in watching your rivals have all their players run for the hills. Man, I guess players like playing in that tiny little gym. That's enough about those other people. I just want to make it clear that this is what NC State fandom should feel like. It should feel like this. There should be wins. There should be impressiveness. And I'm going to say this. Coach Elliott Avon made a couple of ACC championship games recently. He didn't win them, but he made them. Kevin Keats won him an ACC championship. We just talked about how loaded the receivers are,
I know
how special this team could be. Hey, old Salty Dave, give us championship Dave, brother. It's time.
That'll do it for us here on Friday. As always, thank y'all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button, drop your comments in the comment box. And if you have not already, and so many of you have in the last couple of weeks, mash that subscribe button. Tell a friend to do the same. Hoping for good news to come out of this big recruiting weekend for NC State basketball. But until then, we will see you on Monday. Go Pack.
Go Pack.